How long have you been an astrobiologist?
I've been an astrobiologist for 11 years, which is my whole science career.
Okay. What's the best part of your job?
Well, one of the best parts of my job is I get to talk to people like you and just share how excited I am about being a scientist and all the neat things that the Earth has to teach us, not just about the Earth, but also about the solar system, and maybe even beyond the solar system to other solar systems.
Okay. What's the worst part of your job?
The worst part of my job is when I have to go to meetings. Meetings are endless. You sit there and people discuss what you're going to do, and then you discuss what meeting you should have next to discuss what you're going to do, and then you have a meeting to discuss what you just did. But you can't get away from them because science is also about good communication.
Where can an astrobiologist work?
Astrobiologists can work everywhere. In fact, everyone can be an astrobiologist because all you have to do is be curious and observant. Astrobiology is the story of life in the universe, and so we could ask, how did we get here? Why are we here? How do we exist here? And what is our fate? And everyone can ask those questions, and the great thing about science is all you have to do is follow the scientific process and tell other people about your results, and you're a scientist. So that means you could be an astrobiologist anywhere. I like being an astrobiologist for NASA because I get to be involved with space missions, and that's really fun.
Do you travel much? I think you told me that you went to Antarctica and the Arctic. Where else have you gone?
Well, to do science, I mostly go to the polar regions because I'm trying to find places that are as cold as perhaps, well, not really as cold, but a good analog for the Martian environment. So I think that I'm gravitating to the polar deserts on this planet. But I've also been to the moderate regions near volcanoes in Hawaii, and I've been to the desert southwest in the U.S., and I've also been to several places kind of in between, trying to understand how mountains act like deserts and how you could approximate a very high latitude place by a high elevation place.
Okay. What are some new things that you've learned over the course of your career?
One of the things I've learned is that life is really tenacious. No matter where you go, it's hard to go somewhere on the Earth and not find some kind of life. The other thing I've learned is that rocks are really messy. Everyone says that living things are complicated, but rocks are also complicated, and when you study mineralogy, you learn this rock has these chemicals in this structure. But the fact of the matter is, it might have minerals in that structure, but lots of chemicals can substitute in there. And what chemicals are substituted into a crystal in a rock tell you a story about how the rock got formed, or maybe how that rock got altered. And so rocks really do rock because they have quite a lot of information in them.
What, in your opinion, is the most exciting thing that you've done in your job?
I think the most exciting thing I've ever done is to go to some of the most distant places on the Earth and see things that I never thought I would see. I'm actually kind of an old lady. I could be your grandma. But all the cool places I've been to, I didn't even get to go to till I was way over 50 years old. So the message behind that is, if you're curious and you work hard, you can pretty much go anywhere that you try to go.
What are some jobs that you've had before this?
Before I became a scientist, I was a television producer, and I also was a composer, and I was also a singer. So I've done a lot of unrelated things to being a scientist.
What hobbies do you have?
I have so many hobbies, I don't know if I can list them all. I dive. I like to do scuba diving. I'm a member of the Mountain Search and Rescue Team in San Bernardino, California, so we go out and look for people who are lost. I also really love playing all my musical instruments still, and I have a recording studio in my house. I like to spend time with my dog and go hiking, and all my zillions of friends and my family. And I also like to do just anything new that comes up so that I can try everything at least once.
Do any of these hobbies help you with your job?
Everything helps me with my job, my hobbies, things that I do in daily life, because everything really is related to everything else. And being a good scientist means you learn to establish patterns among all the things that you see. So if you observe, you can find relevance from taking your blouse to the dry cleaners, to feeding your dog, to mowing your lawn, and to everything else you do.
Okay. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you?
Well, the funniest thing that's ever happened to me is I didn't end up nearly the way I thought I would end up, because I didn't expect to be a scientist. So it's kind of a crack up, because I was a big music person in high school, did all the shows, went to college, majored in singing, went to graduate school, majored in composing, and then, oops, how'd this happen? I'm a scientist.
Okay. Tell us a part of what you do that's unique to your job. What can you do in your job that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise?
One thing that's really special about my job is I not only get to ask science questions in one area of study, I can ask questions that involve multiple areas of study, geology primarily, but also biology, physical chemistry, meteorology, all kinds of things like that. And then, because I also work on a Mars mission, I can put what I learn in the field on the Earth into what we're going to do when we land on Mars with our very, very diverse group of scientists. So it's like a little mini example of working on the Mars mission team, being in the field with my field team, where we have one of practically every kind of scientist. So I learn a lot about good communication, and what's unique about my job is working with lots of disciplines, lots of different kinds of people, and people from all sorts of places all over the Earth.
What do you think is really interesting about your job? What's the most interesting?
The most interesting thing to me about my job is how many themes repeat themselves, things that you learn about, say, small crystals and rocks on very tiny scales, something you could hold in your hand. You see many of these themes and patterns reproduced on very large spatial scales. So what's tricky, but also one of the coolest things, is trying to understand what's relevant at a teeny tiny level and what is relevant at a very big level, and figuring out where the analogy breaks down and where you need to have creative thought.
Do you have any advice for kids who want to get into astrobiology?
My advice for anyone who gets into astrobiology is just start doing it. Study everything, be enthusiastic, don't be afraid to learn anything. Never, ever, ever say, oh, I don't need to know that. You need to know everything, because you don't know what you're going to need later on. So just learn it all. And it's fun. Have fun with it. Science is big and science is fun. It should never, ever be boring.
That's great. It was really interesting talking with you today. So, thank you.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for doing this so other people can learn about these really cool science things.
I'm Zoe Bentley, and it was fun coming here to JPL. Again, thanks for watching, and Exogeology rocks!